to this point, but we are finally ready to go. This is Liam Quane. Did I get that right?
Yep, you did. Yep.
All right. So this is Liam. He writes stuff, and I met him right after my Sub on Nouvelle podcast like aired, and
Yeah.
he's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah." It's like, "You want to come on the show?" He's like, "Yeah, sure." So, hi, Liam. How you doing, bud?
Hi. Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. Most of my day's already done. You're my last actual thing I have to do today. So,
Oh, right. Yeah, where's till last? Sorry. Um,
no,
no, self-deprecation. It's always fun. Um,
yes.
but yeah, honestly, thank you so much for having me on the show. And as I said earlier, like you are now one of my routine listens for podcast. Now that I kind of dropped all the other ones I was listening to about a year ago, and I've needed to rebuild my list back up. And you're the I think
Oh, thanks.
third on the list of newest ones that I've got in the rebuild, and slowly working way up to second. So
Yeah, well,
soon it'll be third.
I'm glad you like the show.
Yeah,
So, thanks.
absolutely. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
really great. I love the energy, and I love the just the actual conversation style of it. Rather, it doesn't seem artificial. That makes any
No.
sense. And that's what I like. I don't like it when it's very obviously like someone's putting on a show and they're scared of their own shadow to like drift away from anything that could be seen as the against the status quo type thing in entertainment.
Well, I'm just me, my friend. That's all I've ever been.
Hmm.
So, like you said, you sent me your book. I started reading it. I didn't get a lot deeply into it, but I did start reading it at least a little bit. So,
Hmm.
I guess the question I'm going to start with, just to get the ball rolling, is: so you write books. What was the
Yeah,
story that kind of made you want to get into them?
it was actually Sylvain Nouveau. It was the Sleeping Giants Themis trilogy. So it's Sleeping
Yes.
Giants, Waking Gods, and Only Human. And that was the first trilogy I've ever read. But in a collection, it was like the sixth. It was the sixth book I'd read since high school, and that was like, ooh, 14 years ago, or something like that. So like I stopped reading I read in high school, then just didn't read at all. And then when I got into college, I picked up a book because I wanted to watch the movie and it wasn't coming out. So then I proved to myself like, oh, I can read, which is
Did
what university's for, hopefully. And I did that, and then just ended up going book by book, like being very particular about what I wanted. And then I seen there was a trilogy of these like strange warped giant robot philosophical like insane type military stories, and I said okay, I'll have a look at the first one, see what it's like. And I finished the three of them in like a weekend, and then went, oh, I think I'll write one, and wrote one. I'm one of those type of people who if I get into like a medium, I kind of need to be a part of it. So so I just sat down and wrote a book,
okay.
and luckily got it published. And yeah,
Well, so why'd you stop reading?
I stopped reading because I was never a reader. I was a watcher. My whole thing was films, movies, filmmaking, television, that type of thing. Grew up on The Simpsons, so like it was like a natural progression from Simpsons to Star Wars to Marvel to cinema itself. Like they were like nice gateways. So it was always about filmmaking to me, and I am a filmmaker.
Okay.
That was what I trained for in college. I've got all the credentials, and I've made a couple of short films that I am actually proud of. Some of them which had more to say than the others, but they're it's kind of nice. But it was just like as a hobby. I went, oh, I'll see if I can read a book, and then yeah, I read, and then
No,
wrote.
it just interesting. Ah, so you just seem like then somebody that maybe once upon a time just got bored with it, for lack of a better term.
Um, yeah, it was more actually. I'd say it was more obstruction that helped. Like it was. you kind of your time gets taken up, doesn't it? And when you're a kid, like you're always out and about. You're not like stuck at home. So you do the quicker thing, which the quicker thing is a 90-minute movie as opposed to an entire novel. And so that became just that was the thing on repeat, like small chunks, film, like. So that's how I followed that type of journey down. Like it was more like puzzle pieces that fit in individually, but they were really easy to like get through. So with books, it has become a lot more complicated, mainly because they're a lot longer and a lot more time consuming, and they're a lot more. How do we say? There's a lot more of book than there is of a DVD. So like I've got like three Bowen shelves now, just like completely like the letter C on the side because of the weight of them. So I end up like I got a Kindle very recently, so like I'm now switching to digital books, which that become a problem space. So there's a lot of like excuses. I don't know. I'm just not very well read. That might
No,
be the
I'm not like criticizing it, right?
no,
There
no,
are,
go on, no, go
yeah, I'm not
on.
criticizing it. It's more along the lines of trying to get like, usually there's like a medium that they kind of want to do, and it sounds to me like your heart, although you are a novelist as well. We'll talk about your book in a little bit. You're at heart, you just want to make films, or you want to tell stories, but you want to tell them in a different medium. That's what it sounds like, anyway.
Yeah, it is. It's not against the book world or nothing like that.
No,
It's that type of thing where I'm not really a quitter, and I can be seen as a lazy person, but I'm not. I'm also that type of naive, as people say, naive. Like I don't say I hope to, I say I will. If you know what I mean? Like so, it's not really it's not a matter of how, it's a matter of when, really, to me. Um, and I have made the short films, as I've said, which are like pieces in themselves, but they're not really commercially lucrative. So a lot of people start grit the teeth and like they they start out doing short films and like that becomes your life for a bit, and then you look at the differences between like the storytelling formats, and it's this. I mean, this is no disrespect for anyone. It's so much easier to get a book made than it is to get a film made. I was looking like it took me 9 months to write, and it took about a good 5 months of editing and fixing and pre-ordering and waiting to the release date, and it was just out. Like that was just the thing was out. So my editor did an incredible job. She's also the publisher as well, and she's one of those type of people where you know when you met someone and you're like, oh shit, this person's clever, and you just know like when their eyes are going everywhere and you can see them just like thinking. You can like, basically read. You can see the cogs in the brain moving. She's one of those. So she's able to like get stuff done, and she's a very independent publisher, which was done. It was on purpose. It was done on purpose to go independent, mainly because I knew what type of story I wanted to write, and I knew it was going to be and probably an impossible sell. So I went, okay, fuck it, I'm not even going to bother. I'll. Sorry, are you allowed to swear on this?
you can say whatever you like, dude.
Yeah. All right. Fuckity fuck. Now, but there's a path that you have to kind of set out for yourself, isn't there? Where you can plan or you can just do, and with this, like I decided to just do, and I did. I think I got quite very lucky, like in the end with some of the things that I ended up getting for this particular story. Like even the fonts like custom. So I was like very pleased.
Yeah. Well, congrats on making it through your book.
Thank you.
But I guess your heart is you're gonna keep trying to go for bigger films. Then is that the next step, or write more books?
I'm gonna write more books at the moment, but I'm gonna write smaller books and see if I can do it. I still like it. I still enjoy the book world. I still one of the reasons why I wrote the novel I have is kind of to deconstruct the medium a little bit. I enjoy that type of looking, going through the pieces of what make things work. So I like deconstruction and absurdist style stories. So it was really like, for me, it was a really good gateway into getting into writing, was to look at the medium itself and just go like, oh, why does that happen? And then just like try and tell a story out of the why.
Yeah. Yeah, good. I mean, that's your thing, sure. So, all right, we can do this a bunch of different ways. You seem like, again, you talked to me, you mentioned Simpsons, you mentioned Star Wars, you mentioned, right, cinema,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Marvel. So superheroes sound like it's a big part of your thing.
yeah. But yeah, they are absolutely a part of my thing. I kind of refuse to call this book specifically a superhero book, because it's a big deconstruction on the medium, that it doesn't look or sound like a duck by the end, so I won't call it a duck. So I won't call it a superhero novel, but I've I've been like completely obsessed with one particular area of superhero storytelling, and it's an anime called My Hero Academia,
Okay, nothing wrong with
and
that.
I pull a face every time I mention it, because I swear to God, I have sold more people on that show than I have my book. More
Yeah,
people have actively gone out and bought the DVD of that show than my book, after me talking about that one, because it's kind of, I'm not obsessed. I'm
yeah,
obsessed with it, but it's, I think it's more important. Like, I've watched, Spider-Man No Way Home, really enjoyed it, and then it's kind of left me. I watched I'm trying to think of what else there was. There was a lot. All the Marvel films or DC films, they're very easy to brush off. A lot of
yes,
them, I think. But this one remains. It just keeps the political messages in it are so important to me that it kind of, I can't shake it. So it's that was, they released a film like in 2021, just to prove a point about politics. That was all it was doing. Because some of the fans started questioning its politics. So the creator kind of sat everyone down and said, "How dare you? Now you're going to watch what the politics actually mean, and it really is important, I think, to like keep up with it, the show, genuinely." And it like gets me highest praise, and I talk about it consistently. And it's kind of replaced a lot of the blockbusters that are out there, because that was what I started to get tired of, like blockbuster cinema, particularly like, I'm not going to name any films, but they go very fast in cars. Those type of films, I'd rather back away and look for like other things in other countries, because I think I'm not really, I don't really have any hope for Western cinema at this minute in time. If you know what I mean. Have you like, what was the last time you went to the theater?
oh, right before the pandemic.
Right before, what did you watch?
I watched The Rise of Skywalker. That was the last film I saw in theater.
Yeah, that was the last time I ever touched Star Wars.
Yes,
Uh,
hey, listen, I wanted to see the end of the trilogy. It's okay.
yeah,
I think I've talked about the new Star Wars trilogies in various shows in the past. Um, the last one's a bit of a mess. It's a hot mess.
yeah,
It has a couple good moments in it, but the first hour especially is a train wreck. Like, it
yeah,
makes no sense. But
yeah, yeah,
but in spite of all that, I mean, I can still enjoy it. Right? It's
yeah,
not great, but I can enjoy it. It's and because the prequel trilogy, in my opinion, is far worse. So that's just my opinion. I've had that debate with a couple people on the show, but it's like, but I just think the prequel has no emotional investment. The one thing I can say about the second trilogy is I at least like the characters I'm supposed to like, and I dislike
yeah,
the characters I'm supposed to like. So I did at least that right.
yeah, 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 yeah. I'm not. I'm honestly like I am a bit of a bootlicker when it comes to some things. Like I'll like defend like I'm trying to think of a really big train wreck.
I'll tell you one. I'll
Netflix
defend.
Death Note.
I'll
Go on.
defend.
Yeah.
Matrix Revolutions.
I loved it. Loved it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
I can acknowledge that some of that is really bad, right? I can ultimately look when Agent Smith's throwing the cookies against the wall. Oh my God, it is one of those moments where it's just like you go, I should not be laughing right at this moment, but I am. So it's not good. Right? It's just not good. But I I still enjoyed it. But I can acknowledge that, right?
No, yeah, that's well, that's really helpful as well. Like it's healthy as well. It's healthy as a viewer, isn't it? Because well, you don't want to hate everything, do you? Just for the little slights, because then you won't be able to like anything at all. Because nothing's really perfect. Um, I was I the one that came to my mind before was Netflix's Death Note. Have you seen that?
Mm-hmm. I haven't seen it now.
No. It's a film that every single member of the Death Note anime community or whatever despised, like absolutely despised it. I loved it because there was something underneath that wasn't really noticed, and it always sounds like a brag whenever I talk about it, but I have yet to see anybody mention like the actual the point of the film, and we may as well mention it here. Just to there's specific characters in it, two specific characters who play off each other. It's kind of like Romeo and Juliet, but like twisted. The It's an abusive relationship. That's the main part of it. The fans of it like it was an abusive male and a subservient female. That was what it was. And what the filmmakers decided to do was switch the roles in the film, but didn't tell anybody and kept the names. So the abusive male is the subservient one, and the subservient female is the abusive one. But people thought they just wrote the characters badly, like they didn't know how to write him or her. When they did, they just switched them round
Are you
a
talking
little
about
bit.
Light's relationship with the other killer?
Yes, yeah,
Ah,
yeah. Light is not Light in that movie. Light is the other killer, Misa. He's got blonde hair and a stripy red and black jumper. She wears a stripy red and black jumper and has blonde hair. Um, Light has brown hair in the anime. The girlfriend has brown hair in the anime, and she behaves exactly like him. It is just switch roles because there was a bit of problematic writing around the relationship. It was kind of the Joker and Harley Quinn style, but
well, yeah.
realistic. Yeah,
It kind of it is in the anime. That's what it is.
yeah,
Light's a monster. Like
yeah,
honestly,
yeah.
honestly, the thing about like on a personal note. So I like Kojia's Lelouch the Rebellion. I compare
Mhm.
Lelouch to Light,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Lelouch I like a lot more than I like Light. I can't. I like the interaction with L is really interesting,
Yeah.
but the only reason it's really a fight at all is because Light has a supernatural weapon. That light, right? That's the only reason it's even a fair fight.
Yeah.
Light, like L is way smarter than he is. It's not
Yes,
even.
he
It's
is.
not even close. It's not even
Yeah.
close. The thing about Death Note that's interesting is it's the from the sociopath point of view, right? So, sociopath in the first season wins, and in
Hmm.
the second season, finally gets his comeuppance.
Yeah.
In a story like this, though, you want to see a character like that get their comeuppance somehow,
Yeah.
some way.
Yeah.
And so the first season is very hard to watch all of it for me because he is such a piece of shit. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like he is such an open piece of shit, not just to
Yeah.
her, right, his girlfriend, but to everybody, his family, his friends, right, because he has this ideal and the Zealot crusade, right, and that's above everything else, and he can't look at himself honestly,
Mm.
and to some degree, all of us can't do that. right?
Mm,
But
yeah.
right. But thing is, that's the story, right?
Mm,
He's the monster. He always will be the monster. He's never going to
yeah.
be a victim, right?
No.
Right.
Yeah.
At the very end in the second season, when he finally gets his comeuppance, right? He dies.
Hmm.
He's about to die. His Shirogami partner looks at him. Maruk goes to him. Now it's not the time to be afraid. You need it, like you know. Now everything I've seen you do. This I expect you to, you're at the end. Don't don't run from this. And
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, I think the one thing that is kind of sweet about the finale, bittersweet, is Rook never left him until even after he died.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That is true.
Right? Never left him.
Yeah. I never thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
So
It's
yeah,
bittersweet.
that is very
Um, but yeah, I can see why someone in the anime would hate the movie. Then, if what you're saying is true, because
yeah.
as much as that's an interesting analogy, and I get it, you gotta kind of like there's no way around it. Like
No.
he's a lot like right. That some of the shit that he does is brutal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. There's no way around that. So, but yeah, I could see why someone on the anime would hate the movie if that's what they did because it's
Yeah.
not really true to the story that was told. Right.
Yeah. That's kind of you would, yeah, you have to work to it, like adjust to it definitely, because there's kind it's like it's going back to Star Wars, it was like the Anakin Skywalker story, isn't it? Like as clunky as the dialogue is with that film, Anakin Skywalker his story is so deep and so like it just has this weird like it's clever. It just has a cleverness to it that is barely visible because of the dialogue and the sand and the memes. Uh, so like how he was brought up in slavery and then linked slavery with following rules, and Jedi's were rule followers. So like it was he was just allergic to being part of that storyline. He didn't want to fit into that narrative because he's been traumatized by rules, by like the enforcement of rules on him. So when he's a
Ah.
teenager, like yeah, it's like it'll be difficult to swallow if someone's been in slavery and then you go, no, you can't. It's against the rules. Yeah.
I think the thing about Anakin Skywalker, I'm going to go with something. I don't know. Did you ever look at a guy by the name of Mr. Plinkett, his review of the Star Wars, the original prequel trilogy?
I haven't. No, no.
So he does a really good job of breaking down why the first three movies are terrible. And so it's really good because he uses a lot of film logic, just storytelling logic, and explains it. And he thinks one of the biggest things that was missed with Anakin, honestly, one of the most natural gimmies was the trials,
Hmm.
because one of the things that would have made the big problem with the movies with Anakin, honestly, was I had no reason to feel sorry for him.
Yeah.
I had no right. I had no emotional. He seemed like a spoiled little brat,
Yeah.
right? He seemed like a
Hmm.
spoiled little brat that just got mad when he didn't get his way.
Yeah.
And on top of that, he had this tendency to again be petulant, petty. I mean, there's that hole in the middle of Attack of the Clones. He murders his village, like he massacres it. I
Yeah.
don't know. That in my opinion is usually a little bit of a red flag, right? Maybe there's something wrong with him somewhere,
Exactly. Yeah, he
right?
was he was a really good victim for like the darkness to take
Yeah,
over,
like
like the forced part. Um, actually, I will actually check that out because, as I said, I'm not a reviewer person, and as I said, I'm a bit of a bootlicker, but I can like listen to criticisms and stuff. Like I always find it fun because it's one if it's not gonna hurt me, it's just gonna help me like
yeah,
learn. You kind of learn from other people's perspectives on things, don't you? So there's you were just talking about Code Geass. which is that one of your like top shows?
Well, I don't watch very many shows, so
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not cool.
I,
I'm not
I've
cool.
seen,
I at this point in my life, I just don't watch a lot. Cause I have a choice. I can read books, play video games, or
yeah,
watch shows. I can only pick two of the three. So,
yeah, yeah.
um,
I heard that on the last episode, and I was genuinely like panicking if that got brought up, just because I was going like, how would I answer? Because I'm very much the same, but I'm really indecisive. So I spin in the middle like a top, and I need to like kind of let loose. If I get away from like spinning, I go like I'm in a mood and I do it for a long time, but then I eventually come back to the center and then go to the other format. So it's been kind of it's why it's been kind of rocky with authors. But I'm I get on. I've got some lovely. I've met a lot of like lovely people in the author community. Um, but I've also probably read the least out of everyone's work shared wise because I've been writing and I found out very recently that if I'm writing, then I'm very, very incapable of of doing anything else. Like if my TBR list now is it's a stack around 7 feet and it's horrifying because I can literally hear it whispering my name when I'm asleep. It's just, but and that's like the guilt that gets to you where you're going, I know, I will. I just if I do, I can't do this. So I have to like keep myself plodding on with the next book, because it's not this. It's a new genre, new first genre for me. This next book, I haven't actually. It's nothing to do with the last. It's completely standalone. The last one. So it's been quite a tricky trek because I've had to switch genre, switch mood, switch style, and switch influence. So I've all the things I'm watching and like thinking about that excite me are all part of like the other book. Like so that's what I'm really wanting to. That's the world I want to be in, but I can't. I have to like force myself to like do the work. I know you're not in the mood now, but you have to. You know what I mean?
yeah, no, I get
Uh,
that. No, I totally
it's
get that.
I'm into like mental health type thing. Like I love writing about psychiatry and stuff like that's a giant waste of time.
I
Just so
wouldn't
I
go
don't
that far. I disagree
think
on that one.
mm,
It's, I mean, life's big freedom. Like life's big freedom in life is you can kind of do whatever you want to do,
uh-huh,
right?
uh-huh.
Doesn't mean it doesn't matter. I mean, and it just means that you have this freedom to pursue whatever path you want. So hopefully, whatever you're choosing to write, you give a shit about something you pick. Because after all, at the end of the day, you've made this decision. My time is worth doing this,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? So that's it. I mean, I don't know if it's about indulgence. I think it was more like there's something you need to say,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Politics is what's getting me in there, like the political part of it, because the next one's very down to earth as opposed to the other one. I've been leaning on politics as a crutch, like because the world politically is a it's like it's dead on arrival now. It doesn't the political world doesn't actually exist anymore. It's completely like hopeless type thing. Like it's a hopeless type of outlook that it's very easy to fall into, just like Anakin with the killing of the Sand people. It's everyone's now beaten down by the constant like deluge of politics and in misinformation and millions of people being wrong on a daily basis at each other on the internet and that it's one of the reasons why I'm writing this book is so I can like kind of create my own little world where politics actually can work for once a little bit, just in parts of the story, just because I've kind of I'm British. If it's not obvious, I'm from the place. I'm from near the place where the Beatles are from, and we have three political parties, major ones anyway, which are
Hmm.
Labour, which is the Liberal Party, the Conservatives, which is the do you have Conservative Party, don't you?
Oh, we do have a conservative party, yes. We're
Yeah, and we
Canadian.
have the Middles, which are they're useless. They're the third one. They're called the Liberal Democrats, which is a mix of both of them, and even they've even got a similar name. um, and those parties are kind of now twisting in on each other, so they're all being taken over by different people, and a lot of people who were energized by the last decade of politics are now kind of out of it. And it was one of the things that the book, the one the current, the last book I wrote, Road to Juno, it was one of the things that really helped me get through that kind of. It got me into a nice place, Road to Juno, and this book's taken me through a horrible place, if you know what I mean. So it's like I just use the writing to help steer me through a political clusterfuck that's going on around the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's the thing about this time? The one thing about this time doesn't matter what part of the world you live in. You've come to the conclusion, like this is the conclusion I've come to my politics. I don't know if you could feel the same way. It's that there is no integrity with any of these political systems whatsoever. And the reason
Yeah.
why you're having people at each other's throats so much is because no one knows what is actually true. And
Hmm.
because of that, what you've done is you've created an environment where people rightfully have no faith in the system and in authority. Why would
Hmm.
they? Right? Why
Yeah.
would they? Let's be very honest here, right? So you have so when you have that dishonesty existing, you basically have forced people to basically look for answers on their own, and that's when people go wherever they go.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
It does bring a lot into freedom of choice when you go with with the COVID and the vaccines and that type of thing. There's that little slice of you that goes why can't they just force it on people? And then you go, oh, because they'll write a bill to do it, and then some prick will come in next 2 weeks and force other things on other people. So you go that's why they can't. Um, so that's
Well,
where we're at now. We're either at megalomania or argument.
well, you guys are about to relax all your restrictions. I just read that the other day. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, you're about to
And I
relax.
know yous have been going through it. I don't know what part of Canada you're from, but I
I,
know.
I'm in Alberta. I'm in Alberta. Where
Oh, really?
Sylvan's from is right now probably the worst spot.
Mm, hmm. Yeah,
But what it comes down to is yeah, like I said, a lot of people the vax doesn't work at least as advertised,
yeah,
and as a result, I mean, again, starting in England right now, and it's going to hit. It's already been acknowledged in other places as well.
yeah,
Everybody's going to be moving away from these mandates as the year
yeah,
progresses. You can see it. You can see it happening.
yeah,
So it's going to be interesting to see what the long term repercussions of this is going to be. Because um, we went through a really extremely crazy time, and we're still not going to be out of the extremely crazy time. Like I said, England's first, but they certainly aren't going to be last.
yeah,
And it's going to be interesting to watch. And
yeah,
when you see that, and when you I look at what goes on over with you guys first because you guys were among the first countries to get the shot all the way through. You guys did all the crazy stuff before we did.
yeah.
We're behind you by like 6 months. So
uh, do you have a national health service?
not the same way you do. Not
Yeah,
the same way
yeah,
you do. Not the
yeah.
same way you do. Your data is more honest than ours. Like that's the
Oh,
other thing
really?
too. Oh yeah, no, way more honest. Like you guys have the the coronavirus English like UK like website is very very good. Like you have a lot of data there. Um, So you can see what's kind of going on, how it's developing, everything like that. Most of the information I've gotten on what is likely to happen has come from you guys, because you
Wow.
guys actually have no, you guys have an incredible I would almost make a wager that one of the big crimes about in England is you have all this good data nobody reads. So,
Yeah.
but right, but you have a lot of good data. Like your data is very like there is no unvaccinated, vaccinated. Like you have like first shot, this is what happens. Second shot, this is what happens. Third shot, this is what happens. You have weekly reports, right? You guys are about as updated as you're gonna get, and there's a lot less politics. There is some,
Mm.
but there's a lot less.
Yeah. And
So
your split between Trudeau and the center, the center, and the you've got like, I was one of the things I was surprised to learn about Canada, that you have like hardcore kind of American Southerners, like like the sorry, Middle Americans. Like I really was surprised how much like the cultures match in certain areas. Like there's that TV show years ago which was about, as they called it. I wouldn't say this, but they called themselves Canadian hillbillies, which
yes,
I was really surprised to like. It should be obvious that of course the user neighbors, you were in America, so obviously there's going to be some overlap. But I didn't realize there was genuinely like gun enthusiasts and like um people who believe that big government's wrong, a big libertarian like piece of Canada that I was really surprised actually existed. Considering I've watched South Park, South Park should have clued me in, because it had like the hunters who live there, so it should have clued me in. But I was just shocked to see like how the similarities, like even the stereotypes were there, like the quad bikes and the checkered shirts. That was all like there, and I was just looking, going, I don't know what country I'm looking at. This is the one we've been taught is a different one.
yeah. Um, Oh, Canada's temperament, if you really want to like really compare people, is closer to Australia's.
Mm,
It's closer to Australia's than it's right.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
you gotta understand, we're a young country. We haven't been through a lot of the upheavals that a lot of countries go through. And Canadians, as a general rule of thumb, this isn't always the case, mind you, but as a general rule of thumb, cooperate with their governments completely,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Um, The problem, as a Canadians, we believe in order. We just
Yeah.
do. That's not always a good thing,
No.
right?
No.
Right. It's not always a good thing. You have to understand who and what you are and what you're not. And like I said, we are young enough that we still trust authority. We are
Yeah.
old, right? Right. That's where we're at as a country, right? A
Yeah.
lot of Canadians will be like, our government's a good government. It's like, are you really sure about that? Right? But again, it's a matter of perspective. United
Yeah.
States has no illusions. You guys don't really have any illusions.
No, that's like thanks to the Sex Pistols and all that. Yeah, we do argue amongst each other about whether or not we should have a monarchy, and you see again millions of
Oh
people
yeah,
being wrong about that.
monarchy's your little bout of insanity. That's your special insanity. It's your fault.
Yeah,
It's you guys' fault.
my brother, he kind of like solved that riddle for me, just because it was, you're reading on the internet how much they bring in tourism, versus how much that's spent on them. And then my brother's like, he's one of those like, he'd be a good educator, I think. He said, yeah, but what about money that's squirreled away for safety, just in case there's any sort of cyber attack, any sort of financial crash that will reduce the monarchy power by 100%? What happens then? What's not being counted among that? And you go, oh yeah, there's actually classified bits of money that cannot be counted in the tourism pot, due to the fact that it is around national security, and like kind of revealing that type of information literally from a government source create some sort of way to get a backdoor into maybe being able to exploit it, so it's not recorded. But yeah, no country with a monarchy would ever not have emergency money to a safety net to stop the actual financial crash from harming a symbol of power in Britain. It just doesn't make any sense. That's illogical. So like, and there's money that isn't actually counted on how much goes into keeping up a royal family. So that's kind of what made my mind up on it. So there's a big thing on that as well. More people are having like more people are more confident to say like, yeah, we don't want a queen, we don't want a king, we don't want a Prince Andrew, we don't want any of that. Like, so that's been kind of refreshing to see, because it used to be very taboo. Not like 10 years ago it would be unthinkable, but now that there's the internet and social media exists, there's little bases where people are generally wanting like votes to go through, a referendum to like unseat a monarch in the 21st century, which I didn't think I'd ever see.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. They've been around a long time, so
Yeah, I don't think it'd happen if it was put to a vote. There's too much. One of the things that I learned writing the actual book, like that's actually out. One of the things that it taught me, it's kind of like a process where you don't teach yourself, you kind of like find the answers through research and stuff. And it was one of those things where it made me completely like dismiss any concept of democracy being real, completely. Like not in a not in a sense that fascism is currently the thing that's ruling, but a different system that really hasn't been named exists. It's like kind of a mix between this strange capitalistic force that goes on where like money makes the rules, but there's also this ideological framework that it's put up by, where like people like money fears are why people make bad decisions. So you look around different industries like the games industry or the films industry, and you see like people of color aren't being hired, and you try and wonder like, why is that not happening, and one of the reasons could be because the executives literally think, if we start doing that, then my child won't have a job. He's not that color, so maybe it's less room for him if he has to compete. Then so they make the rule not to enforce that type of that type of helpful collectivist framework where people can actually get jobs and compete. A meritocracy, they don't want to bring in a meritocracy because then it means their child will have to compete. So that's one of the things, possibly. I'm not, and by the way, that is not a good thing. That is a terrible thing for them to do if it is true.
This gets tougher. This is an interesting argument, because I just had Jordan Peterson step down as the University of Toronto instructor because of these kind of mandates.
Yeah.
Right? Meritocracy. Yeah. Right? Meritocracy in an ideal world would mean that people who are qualified for the sake of being qualified.
Yeah.
Right? Wouldn't matter what you look like. It wouldn't matter who you slept with, what you believed in. None of that stuff would matter. You just would. Right? If you're the best person, or if you're ideal. The flip side is, on the flip side, and this has always been the case, is best people don't always get the best jobs.
No, not at all.
And it never works. Like, that's the one thing I've learned in this life is, it's not always about your qualifications. It's about what you bring to the table, what you're willing to do to like make it possible. And that doesn't, so when you bring in stuff where people are high empowerment, people of color, indigenous people, you're still creating a different imbalance, right? You're right. You're still creating a different imbalance. By the way, I don't really care. Like, I'll work with anybody. It doesn't matter to me who they are, what they look like. I don't care, as long as they can do the job well. But that's all I care about, right? But you're only going to see what you're going to see. So on one hand, creating an environment where people have the opportunity to be seen is a great thing.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you make a requirement, a percentage of certain people being hired this way or that way, again, are they the best people? Right.
Mm.
And that's the other end of that. That's the other end of that equation as well.
Yeah, the equation that's like looked at in a really interesting way, that type of, but in like kind of a broader sense, where it was an old TV show called Pairs of Interest. I talk a lot about TV today. I don't know why. But
It's what came out.
it was it's one of those type of things where it's a show where it's about a machine that watches people, and it's used by the government to spot terrorists. It's like, the surveillance systems.
Yep.
But then it kind of, not to spoil it for anybody, but there's more than meets the eye with that machine. It's not a transformer, but it is it's it's basically alive, and it then brings about the question: can an artificial intelligence actually run a society with numbers? And the question's kind of answered with no, because humans still program the system, and the system only can learn from humans. So the only way to be able to do that is if humans were more nice to each other than they were horrible, and more like, if humans already perfected that type of society like that, it could learn from that. So it kind of said no. So all we do really is we go around and like um trends now. Why trending's so powerful, isn't it, on social media? It's trends, like fashion. People are treating people like fashion. So now this group will be the group that people want to see, and this group will be the group that people want to see. And frankly, I really, I think it's Twitter and all those things. Just no, if you nobody would ever be talking about this, and it'd never be addressed. So I'm really happy it's being addressed, because I think a lot more people need to give less of a shit about themselves. You know what I mean? Like, there's
Mm.
people who look like, how the 1930s imagine the perfect hero would look, and they're not good at what they do. So off you go, like, leave and move out the way for people who don't look how dead people believe that a hero or god should look like. You know what I mean? So there's just the question of who's the least selfish, and with humans, like, everyone has no choice but to have self-interest in mind, due to the fact that if we didn't, we'd probably perish. So just give whoever wants the job, and make sure they earn it. And even if they don't, they've got their own individual language to tell. There's literally no answer. Like, the at this point, I'm kind of sick of, as I've said earlier, I'm sick of blockbuster culture, and that was not created by people of color. So maybe step down, everyone, and give another group a try. Because
But now you
yeah.
go into the age-old human concept.
Hmm.
Now
Go
you're
on.
doing that. Now you got to deal with the age-old human struggle, which is this. See, I don't necessarily. So human nature. If you do, let's just say your book sells 10 million copies, gets made into a movie, it kicks all kinds of ass,
Hmm.
and Liam, suddenly you are the man,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and then they're like, hey, we'd love you to make something else for us.
Hmm.
Naturally speaking, you'd be interested in that, right?
Yeah,
Right? No, it's not
yeah,
in
yeah,
itself a bad thing, right?
yeah.
Doors
Well, yeah,
open, why not?
yeah,
Right?
yeah. Go on.
Right? So
Yeah.
so now let's say you do that, you do another one, and maybe you do another one. Okay? You're doing good. Not you, right? You're doing good, right? And at that point, someone will come up to you and say, okay, your time's up. We need to give someone else a try. Would it be so easy to walk away from that?
Um, do you know what's funny? Like, the obvious answer you want is yes. That'd be the answer that anyone would love to give. and also the answer is like you also want me to fail the test because you also want me to say no, because then it actually fails the test,
Yeah,
and
It,
pushes
it,
you
it,
to the limit. But
it's not a pass or a fail. It's just an understanding of human nature,
yeah,
right?
I personally have kind of a you've seen how much I self-deprecate. I personally like don't. I personally would genuinely, I think, say, okay, someone
No,
else has a go, just
and
because
you might, but
I have that good balance of ego and self-deprecation where I have like I think so much of myself that I can see how badly I would affect an area of like politics or the world that I would be narcissistic enough to take myself out of it. You know what I mean? Like that's the only way. Like
but
if
but
it,
okay. I threw this out like this for a reason because I wanted you to be like honest. Like, it wouldn't be like if we're being really honest, right? Wouldn't be so easy to walk away from. You would,
it depends.
you still might do it. I'm not saying you wouldn't do it,
Yeah.
but it would hit you differently.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? It would hit you differently,
It
right?
depends. Does depend on your lifestyle and your family. Well, there you go. Back to the family thing.
But
Um,
yeah,
it would
I'm
just
just
be
simply
that.
putting this. I'm bringing this up just like this for a reason. I'm not here to condemn you. I'm not here to tell you like you wouldn't walk away or you would walk away or I'm not here to tell you that. But what a lot of people have a tendency to do is we have a tendency to make a judgment about what people choose to do. We
Mm,
very rarely understand why, right? And
yeah,
so when I look at something like this, right, I wouldn't be so quick to walk away. That's
mm,
also human nature, not because I got what I
yeah,
wanted. This is what I wanted
yeah,
to do more than anything else. And you tell me I have to give this up? That would be
yeah.
hard, right? I'm
Yeah.
just being really real with that, right?
No, yeah,
Right? That would be very
yeah,
hard to do. Now, again, I have a slightly different philosophy when it comes to publishing and blockbusters and all this stuff. I
yeah,
realize that no matter who you are, your shelf life is finite. You only have
yeah,
so much time in this space.
yeah,
But even with all that, right? A lot of people try to fight to stay in those spaces as long as they can.
yeah. They do. Yeah,
Yeah, right. And that's again, and that's not always a bad thing,
no.
right? It's not. It's just it can be, but not always, right?
Mm,
There's a balance there because again, if you just go along with everything, how you know you're going to get taken care of, right?
yeah,
Especially
yeah,
with right. At the same time, I don't need everything either, right? I don't need to have the whole cake and eat it too forever and ever and
mm,
ever,
yeah,
right? There's a balance there. I just kind of wanted to bring this up like this, just like because again, a lot of people like things like I'm going to serve my community. That's cool. That's great and wonderful. But same time, gotta make sure you're taken care of when you do.
yeah, yeah,
Because if you forget, they likely will too.
yeah, yeah. It's true. That's one of the things you notice when a lot of people believe like government doesn't work, and a lot of people believe that capitalism doesn't work. And the worst part is like the humanity kind of doesn't work. It's here, and what are you going to do? And now that climate change is rolling in, it's kind of forcing a decision, isn't it? So it's now that I think that's kind of the great like arbiter of change. Like the coronavirus is kind of like a mini metaphor of what is humanity's facing overall, and it shows exactly how humanity will react when it comes to this climate change thing. A lot of people will be saying it's not my fault, I'm not going to sort it. A lot of people will be saying I've worked hard to be here, I shouldn't have to give up eating meat. They can eat locusts, they can not drink water for a while, they can come out, get night jobs so you don't have to come out in the scorching daylight. And that's kind of the way it's going to be until it inevitably like collapses. Like I do have a bleak outlook. I have a baby face, but like I have a bleak outlook on the future of humanity now, just because not because we have a king size collective death wish, but because there's kind of a certain individuals are looked up to more than groups of people. So we have a group of indoctrinated people who genuinely believe that they're going to go to Mars, which is insane. They're never going to Mars. They are absolutely never, 100% never going to that planet ever. William Shatner can go to space. They can't. And he had to be in a television show for 50 years or something just to do it. Oh, look, another telly show. So there's my outlook on all this type of thing is the only thing you can kind of do is preserve the art in some sort of like data stream that goes out into space. Or if you want to try and do that with personalities, you can, but that's completely like sci-fi. Like that, to write a personality into a data stream that you're going to be able to project out into space to live on is not really in our in our function, especially while we're looking up at a desolate, a desolate planet like Mars and going, oh, we could live there because that's delusion. So yeah, that's kind of the future in a nutshell. Climate change is going to make humans decide whether or not they want to survive, and they won't because they'll choose wrong as usual. Not that I can say I know what to choose. I have no idea. Like I luckily won't be faced with that problem, but then again, a lot of people have said the exact same thing as I've just done there. Luckily, it won't be my problem. So that is part also of the issue. You don't actually, nobody knows, do they?
So let me give you some thoughts because I'm older than you, wiser, and some kind of bullshit like that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No, no, most people are.
So here's the thing. Okay, climate change. I've heard climate change. Heard
Hmm.
the oil sands would run out. I heard the tides would get bigger. You know, I've heard a lot of environmental disaster stuff since I was born in the 80s. Climate change is the latest iteration of it,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not saying we're not altering our environment. We are. I'm not debating that with you. But what I am kind of what I have learned in this life is this. Very often the future comes in ways we don't expect. This could be the apocalypse. This could be the end of the world as we know it. And it could be bleak and blah 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 blah. And there's this thing, and then okay, so on the flip side, right? I have my belief personally is this: the future, much like today, is what you make of it,
Yeah.
right? And so my tendency is I'm not necessarily going again. I am politically what we would call an atheist, politically.
Yeah.
Right, right. I have no faith in any government system or authority system telling me anything. I don't got it. I just don't. I
Mm.
think, I'll crap in one hand and I'll hear their promises in another, and I'll tell you which one will fill up first, right? And that's how I see it. That is just how I see it. All of which to say is I'm not saying that there won't be bad things coming in the future. Things do happen.
Mm. Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it's going to be all bad. I don't necessarily think it's going to be all good. But I also have
Yeah.
a tendency to think that, like, this idea, again, that collective doing the right thing. I think we need to have a little honest look at what that actually is. More often than not, historically speaking, that collectively for the right thing has never gone well, historically speaking. So so you'll have to forgive me, Liam. I have my doubts about that whole good for the collective stuff. I'm old and cynical and unoptimistic that way, and I fully admit that. But what I will say is this: you, much like everybody else, have to have a say in what the future looks like. You will have problems. You will make mistakes. Some of them will be good. Some of them will be not so good. but in that process of doing things, you might discover in life, just a touch. And I know this might sound just optimistic here. I know it's a shocking thing. I'm an optimist. But the thing is, the thing is this: you might discover even in the most terrible moments some magic and good things that come from it. It's never the world is never, the future is never what we imagine it will be, ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
I'm not saying there aren't things about the future not to worry about. I don't know if we worry about quite the same things, but there are other
No.
things. I'll acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But there's still magic out here. And there's kind people and decent people all around you. You just gotta
Yeah.
open to it.
Yeah. I
Just
was
my
gonna say
thought.
that is optimistic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's relative then, is what you say.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Mm.
I mean, tomorrow we'll have a new apocalypse. We'll have a new COVID variant. We'll call it
Yeah.
Dodo. Variant Dodo will come and scare us all. And then the next day, it won't be climate change. It will be climate tides. It'll be just giant waves of water crashing into all this stuff. That's what's going to be. And then the next day after that, we'll have a sea monster coming out from the abyss and the death, because God only knows, right? At this
Yeah.
point, right, it's not really so much about being relative. It's also this: what can you control, good sir?
Yeah.
You.
Yeah.
You.
Yeah.
The rest, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. You just have to you know, understand that like whatever's happening is going to happen already. You just don't know why. That's the Matrix, isn't it? Like as you're saying about Matrix Revolutions and stuff like that. Back onto the films. That is you in a nutshell. Like they said, like whatever's going to happen has already happened. You just don't know why it's happened. That
You
type
already
of thing.
made the choice. You just don't
Yes,
understand
that's the
why
one.
you made the
Yeah,
choice. And
yeah,
that was what was said in the second one. The
yeah, yeah,
the 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 thing is, my favorite line in that whole series is, we're all here to do what we're all here to do.
yeah.
I'm not saying this to sound selfish. I'm not saying this to sound like whatever, but
No, no, no.
worry about what you're supposed to do, whatever
Yeah,
that is, my friends, and let the rest of the world be the rest of the world. It's
yeah,
not such a bad place when you just, if you have that, live and let live attitude. That's again, I'm older, wise ish something, and that would be what I tell you instead. Be Because you don't need a bleak outlook. You might still have, again. I'm not expecting to change your mind in one conversation either, but you you don't need to have just a bleak. Like, if you can look at people and go, look, I don't get it, I don't understand it, but I'm gonna let you do you anyway. If you can have that, right,
yeah,
you'll be good. It won't be
yeah.
so bleak. I
Exactly.
promise.
Yeah, 'cause that's like disconnecting yourself from it, but it's also like, do you deserve to be a part of it in the first place? Is it really anything to do with you? That type of thing. Or
Well,
it's
it's more. Okay, okay. So think of it like this: you might have things about your life that I will look at what you do and go, I don't get it. Now I can be angry at you for it, but why? Right? I mean, I just like, this is one of those like this is one of these like big moments. Like, why?
Yeah.
I don't understand what your life's like. I don't understand your struggles. I don't understand you. I don't understand who you are day in and day out. You might be the sweetest guy I've ever talked to. You might be the biggest asshole. I don't know. I mean, I'm only having an hour conversation with you. I can't make that conclusion in one conversation.
Oh,
You
I know
seem
the
like a
answer
good
to that.
dude, but I don't, again, I can't 100% make that proclamation right now.
No, neither can I.
So it's more of the concept of, I don't know the road that got led you to me. I
Mhm.
don't know. I don't understand it. So since I don't understand it, why judge you about it?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's it.
yeah, that's it. That's it. That's all I'm saying. And if you
Yeah.
have that mentality with everybody, right? If you can do
Yeah.
that with everybody, the world doesn't seem quite so bleak. Like you might be confused all the time. That's my boat, right? Yeah, that's my boat. I'm gonna join the club, right? But you'll be confused in I don't understand it and I don't know I'll ever will kind of way. And that's not. And then maybe somewhere along the way, and somewhere along the way, you'll find something that truly is wrong that you can make a change on. And if you make even just one change in one battle, it's not bad, right? You made the world a better place.
Yeah.
Well, right,
Exactly.
but again, in my case in particular, I'm just confused a lot, and I just trust that you are doing the right thing by you, right? I hope so anyway, right? And then yeah, like
Yeah.
that's it, really, man.
Yeah. Same. I do hope the same as well. Like, because I don't know the answer. Like, I don't honestly, like, I didn't think I was going to write a book. Like
Yeah,
that's kind of to put it in perspective for myself. That was never going to happen at all. Like, so that's quite nice. Um, the um, there's a bit of a strange part in it actually, where the book itself, I I wasn't really prepared to write just a straightforward narrative. So I do understand what you mean, because there's a little bit of a puzzle aspect to the book where I wanted to write characters who were cleverer than me. So I had to solve that puzzle of how I could do it, and I think I might have cracked it, but it's more like the quantity rather than the quality of what's in there. Um, the usage of certain symbols that I have to look up, the characters don't. So, because in the context of where they are, the symbols were necessary in the writing. But
yeah,
afterwards, now I've forgotten what they mean. But the characters will always remember because they're stuck in that kind of the
yeah,
scene. I mean, so I think I did manage to write people who are cleverer than me. Um, and that is literally not to say I'm clever. It is to say that it's just I've never I didn't think I'd be able to do that, just because it sounds paradoxical. Um, I'm not a clever person. I'm good at putting a lot of little ideas together and making it look like a lot. It's like kind of little twigs that become a bundle, that become a
mhm,
bonfire type thing. Um, I'm more I think I'm more naive and confident, where I can, like, oh, look what I did, and show, rather than like panic over doing it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
there's some people whose dream it is to write books who haven't written books because they're kind of scared to do that. But, you know, I'm a really good example of how just walking into it actually does work eventually. Like, just
yeah,
carry on walking, even if it's baby steps, even if you are walking like a literal toddler with a like at people, like they'll pay attention to you when you start talking. um, so it's kind of yeah, the puzzle aspect of the whole thing. It makes it kind of an interactive medium a little bit, not just for me, but for the readers as well. There's like there's things in there that if you know what they are, you'll get it, like little inside jokes. But if you don't, you can check, you can look them up. You can ask me, and then I'll look them up because I won't remember. But there's also like little areas where page turning needs to happen, and it's up to you whether you want to turn the pages or not. It kind of breaks the fourth wall a lot that way. You said you read a bit of it, which again, like that I like the fact that like anything's been read of it, because I know what it's like to actually be between mediums. So like I'm really happy if people just like look at the cover, and like just any time they give, you know what I mean, to like something that I've actually done is like worth way more to me like than money, just because you can always get more money if you're in such a position.
yeah.
You can't really get people's time back.
No, you can't. You
Yeah.
can't. But all of which to say, so far it's interesting, and it's not surprising. You can make people smarter than you. It's pretty easy to do. It's
Yeah.
like, right? What wouldn't I do? No. Kudos to you,
Thank you.
honestly. Kudos
Thank
to
you.
you for finishing a book.
Thanks.
Congratulations, right? And I think we're just about ready to wrap her up. Before we do, I got 2 questions left, and then we'll get to the plugging of your shit, right? The plugging of the stuff. The first question is this. Obviously, you're going to do more books. I'm saying that. But I'm just curious from a film standpoint. I get it. It's much harder to do a film. I totally do understand that. But do you want to do a feature film someday?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I will. I will. I'll do my baby steps and I'll run at it, and I will get. Well, I'll trick someone eventually into giving me money.
So good luck. I
Thank
be very like the one thing about movies when this another conversation down the road we'll talk about. There's a lot more avenues even with movies about how to go, where to present them, and stuff today that there were in the past. So making a good movie in your way is very possible. So the second question then is this. It's the last one.
you.
Okay, obviously, again, you don't want to do typical superhero stuff, but what I will ask is this: beyond the Marvel movies, like, did you try any comics? Did you like? You mentioned My Hero Academia, which is a cool concept, by the way.
Hmm.
But did you try any traditional comics or anything like that when you do your research?
Ooh, I do read comics, and there was a comic that did inspire like the stories like middle through line, like which honestly I told myself I'd never name it just because it's kind of I always see influence and I kind of try and avoid seeing influence in people's work, so I thought I won't name what my influences are, but it was a dystopian fiction comic, 1980s. The character's been removed from Marvel's universe for a good while, a very
Ooh,
long time, and he's just now being teased back, which is going to just be a. It's not going to work. It can't work. It's too of its time. Um, so there's a new Marvel comic out right now that literally like brought him back 20 years after he went into like hibernation, not in the comics, in real life. It's just they couldn't touch it with a barge pole because it caused them too much trouble, and now they're trying to touch it again. Coincidentally, a year after I actually publish a book about that type of story. So it's just the times we live in now, isn't it? Where media's been, reflecting the times we live in. So everyone's making things very similar to each other. Um, and I'll be lucky if I can find readers who aren't familiar with certain things like uh, those Marvel comics or any specific darker telly shows that may revolve around flying people or whatever. Because if
yeah.
there's people who can fly and it's dark in tone, they will cover the same themes. So if I can get there first with certain audiences, that's a bonus. If I can't, hopefully like the identity comes through, if you know what I mean, of like my identity as a writer rather than as a
Mhm.
character, so that it kind of sticks out. But I did, I grew up like on Spider-Man. Like that was my number one thing. Like Simpsons and Spider-Man, they were my things. And then I kind of lost touch with the Simpsons just because everyone else did, and it was one of those. It seemed like so much time has passed with the Simpsons that there's no point in touching it again. But with Spider-Man, it kind of evolved into film form, so I've always had a connection there with it. And
Mhm.
now I've got two of the omnibuses, the part one and two of the collection of like the original Spider-Man that I'm like diving back into now, just to like get myself caught up on what the actual story is that I grew up loving, because I've never read the originals. I've only read like my times versions, like the what was it where they brought in, like, it was like the 90s, late 90s
Ultimate
comic.
Spider-Man.
Just before, so I think it was Spectacular, and it was the one where they had like Shocker was in it, and Shocker was an actual threat. Like he wasn't a joke. Shock was actually scary in it.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, Mr. Liam, I think we have an interview here. What do you think?
Oh yeah, if it's gone well for you, if you wanna dare risk putting it up.
Oh no, it's up now. It's gonna be like I'll definitely be doing it. But before we wrap up, let's do this properly. Where
hmm
can people find your book, and where can people find you?
Okay. People can find the book on every website that sells books, like Amazon, Waterstones in the UK, Barnes and Noble in the US. Uh, Also, the other ones, the social media profiles like Goodreads and Facebook and all of them. There's one that I use called Vero, which Vero, that I really like. That's a social network that app, and I'm on there like mostly. That's where I hang out on.
Sure.
My usernames for Twitter is specificity archives. So it's a very strange one, but it's specificity A. It's just at specificity A. That's how you find me Twitter. It's easier just to search Liam Quane and everything. Because it's apparently a very uncommon name, so it's easy to find me.
Yep. No,
hmm
I found you on Amazon. I just gave the link to your book on Amazon. I hope you don't mind that.
No, no, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have a website?
Yeah, the website's called specificityarchive.com.
Spec.
Rule one of marketing: make it simple and easy. And I went, okay, I'll do the opposite. That should work.
So
Like,
for everybody watching, I'm just doing this a little quick so that people can see where you can find your stuff,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Liam Quane. We met on Twitter, and we had a lovely conversation today, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Maybe I got him thinking. Maybe I didn't get him thinking. I don't
No,
know.
you did.
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah. But no, man, thanks for coming on. So for everybody watching, everybody listening, if you want to support, what I'm doing here, following can be done. Go check out my book, Alice One, which is right here, if I'm not mistaken. That's my book. It's Alice in Wonderland, Greek mythology. Alice is Pandora. She opens the box, and in this book, she chases the Queen of Hearts over the edge of the world and ends up in the Greek underworld. To escape, she must play croquet against Jason of the Argonauts. And in so doing, Alice and company have to travel that labyrinth out in the game, encounter gods, monsters, and perhaps the most terrifying thing of all, themselves. All right. For everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching this and listening to this early edition of Just Joshing. I will be back tomorrow evening with another guest, right? But until then, stay inspired, keep shining in the dark, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Bye.